I never really noticed casual racism until I hired a black man as a waiter at my restaurant last fall. I recently hired a young man of African American descent. When I hired him, I didn't consciously take his race into consideration, and he has proven to be competent in his job. However, I've noticed that the complaints about his service seem to be higher compared to our other servers. For instance, there was an incident where a customer observed him talking to someone instead of bringing their drinks. However, it turned out that the person he was talking to was actually the business owner. When I checked the ticket, I realized that the drinks were served just 30 seconds later than expected, even though the customer had been waiting for about 2 minutes. Another complaint I received was from someone who flagged me down, complaining that one of our servers was standing around doing nothing. Upon investigation, I discovered that the server was actually inputting a large order at our point-of-sale terminal. This kind of situation has occurred about 6 times in the past 2 months. Interestingly, all of these complaints have come from older white men from the baby boomer generation. At first, I thought it was just a coincidence that all the complaints about my new server came from older white men. I didn't want to believe that it was because he was black. But the more I thought about it, the more it seemed like that was the case. I had never really noticed casual racism before. I'm not racist myself and I don't hang out with racists. But I guess I just didn't realize how prevalent it still is. I started paying closer attention to how my black server was treated compared to the other servers. And it wasn't just the complaints. Customers would sometimes give him weird looks or make snide comments. It made me so angry. I tried talking to some of the customers who had complained, but they just brushed me off. One guy even said I'm not racist, and then went on to complain about my server's attitude. I couldn't believe it. I started thinking about what I could do to address the situation. I talked to my other servers about it, and they were all supportive. They said they had noticed it too, and that it made them uncomfortable. So, we came up with a plan. We started giving the black server the best tables and the most high-profile events. We made sure he was always the first one to be picked for shifts. We wanted to show our customers that he was just as good as the other servers, if not better. And you know what? It worked. Slowly but surely, the complaints started to dwindle. Customers started asking for him by name. They would compliment him on his service and his attitude. It was amazing to see. But then, one day, something happened that made me realize we still had a long way to go. We were in the middle of a busy Saturday night, and my black server was doing an amazing job. He had 3 tables in his section, and he was handling them all with ease. But then, this one guy came in and sat down at one of his tables. The guy was clearly drunk, and he was being loud and obnoxious. He started making comments about my server's race, saying things like, "You people are always so lazy," and "I bet you're only working here because you couldn't get a job anywhere else." My server just smiled and tried to ignore him. He kept doing his job, bringing the guy his drinks and taking his order, but the guy just kept getting louder and more abusive. Finally, I couldn't take it anymore. I went over to the guy's table and told him to leave. He started arguing with me, saying that he had a right to be there and that my server was the one who was being rude to him. I tried to reason with him, but he just wouldn't listen. Eventually, I had to call the police to get him to leave. It was a total mess. Afterwards, I talked to my server about it. He said that it wasn't the first time something like that had happened to him. He said he was used to it, and that's when it hit me. No matter how hard we tried, no matter how good of a job he did, there would always be people who would judge him based on the color of his skin, and that was just wrong. I realized that I needed to do more than just give him good tables and high-profile events. I needed to stand up for him and speak out against racism whenever I saw it. It wasn't enough to be not racist. I needed to be actively anti-racist. My black server is still doing an amazing job, and the complaints have pretty much stopped altogether, but I know that there's still work to be done. I started reading more about racism and educating myself on how to be an ally. I learned about microaggressions and how they can be just as harmful as overt racism. I learned about white privilege and how it affects every aspect of our society, and I started speaking out more. Whenever I heard someone say something racist, I would call them out on it. I didn't care if it made them uncomfortable or if they didn't want to hear it. I knew that staying silent was just as bad as being complicit.